Hello, my dear students. Today we will talk about in the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act 1946. In today's lecture, we will talk about the extent and application of the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act 1946, and we'll also talk about the concept and nature of standing orders. So far the extent and application of the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act is concerned, this act may be called the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act 1946, as I have already told you, and it extends to the whole of India. This act applies to every industrial establishment wherein 100 or more workmen are employed or were employed on any day of the preceding 12 months, provided that the appropriate government may, after giving not less than 2 months notice, I repeat, provided that the appropriate government, after giving not less than 2 months notice of its intention so to do, by notification in the official gazette, apply the provision of this act to any industrial establishment employing such number of persons less than 100 as may be specified in the notifications. But appropriate government will give at least for 2 months notice for this. And nothing in this act shall apply to any industry to which the provisions of chapter 7th of the Bombay Industrial Relations Act 1946 apply, and any industrial establishment to which the provisions of Madhya Pradesh Industrial Employment Act 1961 applies. So the establishment where these two acts are already applicable, in those establishments this act will not be applicable. Number one, an industry to which the provisions of chapter 7th of Bombay Industrial Relations Act 1946 applies, and an industrial establishment to which the provisions of the Madhya Pradesh Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act 1961 applies. Now we'll talk about the concept and nature of the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act 1946. The Labor Investigation Committee in its report had observed that an industrial worker has the right to know the terms and conditions under which he is employed and the rules of discipline which he is expected to follow. Actually, before we understand this concept, we all know very well that the clarity of obligations and privileges play a major role in cordial relations. Means once there is a clarity of obligations and privileges, that what an individual will be under what obligations and what sort of privileges a person would be enjoying. So this is a, this plays a very major role in the cordial relations, work satisfaction, and in the performance also. And the same thing is very much true in the context of employment conditions in the industrial setting. As an individual, if I know what are my obligations, what privileges I would be availing, then it will definitely lead to good relationship. And the same is applicable to the industrial establishments, because in the industrial establishment we need to work upon the better relationship for the employers as well as between the employers and employees. And this is the reason that the Labor Investigation Committee in 1946 had observed that An industrial worker has the right to know the terms and conditions under which he is employed, under the rules of discipline which he is expected to follow. So the committee had observed this thing that an industrial worker is having this right to know that what are my terms and conditions for the employment, and what are the rules under which, and what are the discipline which I'm supposed to follow. So when these things are clear, this will definitely lead to the good industrial relation between the employer and the employee. Broadly speaking, if we talk in about Indian industries, the rules of service are not definitely set out, and like all unwritten laws where they exist, they have been very elastic to suit the convenience of employers. Actually, in India, what employer used to do earlier, they used to frame the laws, rules, and regulations as per their convenience, where they would be on the driving seat, and they would be taking more advantages of these rules and laws. And prior to the Industrial Employment in Standing Orders Act 1946, the conditions of obtaining employment in several industrial establishments were governed by contracts between the employers and employees. And terms and conditions of employment were not reduced to writing and were even governed by the oral agreement. So prior to this Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act, uh, the employers and employees, most of the rules between these two were governed through oral agreements. And in establishment which had their own standing orders, such terms and conditions, either these terms and condition was very much ambiguous or these were very inequitable, and this was the root cause of many cases, and number of industrial disputes, and the this victimization and unfair labor practices were frequent to occur, and the industrial workers had no right to know the rules governing their employment. So this was the bone of contention, and this was the main issue between the employer and employees in most of the industrial establishment. And no doubt, several large scale industrial establishments have adopted standing orders and rules to govern the day to day relations between the employers and workers. But such standing orders or rules are clearly one sided. Yes, we can say that most of the large scale industrial establishment, they used to have the rules to or the employees were governed through some rules, but most of the rules were for the employers benefit, or these rules were much more inclined for the employer side. So this was the real victimization and the unfair labor practices being adopted by the employers prior to this Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act. And when workmen realized that, and that at individual level they lacked adequate bargaining strength, and they felt that uh, they are lacking in adequate bargaining strength to secure fair terms and conditions of employment, they organize themselves. All the workers, they organized themselves and in the form of trade unions, and initiated the process of collective bargaining with the employers. And intervention of union and the process of collective bargaining created new problems in the way to maintaining industrial peace. And soon a situation emerged in which workers were they were trying to put forth their demands, and employers were all the times refusing to accept those demands. And then tripartite labor conference pleaded for defining the condition of employment so as to promote harmonious relations between the employers and workmen. And there was a consensus of the opinion in favor of a legislation in that tripartite labor conference, which was held in 1947. And it was then that the legislature made an attempt to intervene by introducing the Industrial Employment Standing Order Bill 1946. And with the help of this Industrial Employment Standing Orders Bill 1946, an attempt was made to intervene, not actually exactly this through this attempt they tried to provide for the framing of standing orders in all industrial establishments where 100 or more workmen were employing. And this bill was passed by the legislature and it received assent of President of India on 23rd April 1946, and it came on the statute book as the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act 1946. So in this way, this is the story or the history of the Employment Standing Orders Act. And see, actually, neither the workers' organization nor the government are generally consulted before these orders are drawn up, while prior to this act, and more often, than not, they have given the employers the upper hand in respect of all disputable points. And because of all those problems, it was to overcome from these evils that the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act was passed to require the employers in industrial establishment to define with sufficient precision the condition of employment under them and to make this sad condition known to the workmen employed by them. Because earlier what was happening, the rules were there, employer used to frame rules, but most of the rules were, either these rules were favoring the employers, or most of the times employees were not aware that what are the rules, uh, through what rules their employment would be governed, what are their terms and conditions. So these were the problems employees were facing prior to this act. And before this act, there was no law to prevent the employer from having different contracts of employment, because earlier it was a sort of contract between the employer and employee, and there was no law to prevent the employer from having different contracts of employment with workmen that led to confusion and discriminatory treatment, because there was no law. And then because of that, this tripartite labor conference pleaded the for defining the conditions of employment and to create harmonious relations between employer and workman. And as I told you that before this act, victimization and unfair labor practices were, quite frequent, and the industrial workers had, no right to know the terms and conditions and rules of discipline of his employment. And this was the reason that employers, they were just they used to exploit the workmen most of the times. So far the nature of the standing orders are concerned, the Supreme Court in a case of Bagalkot Cement Company Limited versus Pathan 1962 held that the certified standing orders have statutory force, and after they are certified constitute the statutory terms of employment between the industrial establishment in question and their employees. So it was decided by the Supreme Court in Bagalkot Cement Company Limited. And then again in Western Indian Match Company, Supreme Court spoke in similar terms. The terms of employment specified in the standing orders would prevail over the corresponding terms in the contract of services in existence at the time of enforcement of standing orders. So these standing orders would be prevailing even if there is some over the corresponding terms in the contract of service in existence at the time of enforcement of standing orders. So in these two cases, Supreme Court has given clear cut or means instructed through these cases that the certified standing orders have the statutory force, means it is not either on the employer that whether he will accept or not, but it is something which is having the statutory force. So this is about the nature of the standing orders and the extent and application of Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act 1946. So in next lecture, we'll take up some new topic, my dear students, and I hope this lecture will help you and through this lecture you will learn that what is the concept and nature of the standing orders and the about the extent and application of the Industrial Employment and Standing Orders Act 1946. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.